So in his turn, the shooting and the magic were a little uneventful. He does wither the R boys again. They're toughness 2 now, and he uses like Bless with Filth on the Storm Vermin because he knows the Chariot Charge is coming. Shooting is really uneventful. The cannon and the Ratapult both miss. And in combat, you can see here that predictably the Goblin Wolf Chariot has destroyed the Warpfire Thrower and turned to face the back of the Storm Vermin. And I don't know if I got a picture of it, but the other 3 chariots are facing the front of the Storm Vermin. So this is going to be a really terrible turn to be a Storm Vermin. And also you can see what happened. The slaves and the general's unit run off my Night Goblins, and they have reformed. The slaves reformed to block the charge into the general's bunker, and the bunker reforms to try and take the chariot if the Storm Vermin can hold. So in my turn 3, I don't have any animosity, which is great. You can see that my wolves have charged the Warp Lightning Cannon, and that's going to go really well for me. Also, here's a picture of the 4 chariots and the Storm Vermin, and that's just going to go terrible. I think there's about 35 Storm Vermin left at this point, maybe 45, but 4d6 plus 4 impact hits is just going to be all sorts of crazy. Now, one thing to note is that I did fail my fear test with the front 3 chariots. The Storm Vermin have the Flaming Banner, which means that they cause fear in chariots. The Goblins, with their leadership 6, I expected to fail, but I expected one of the Orcs to pass, but they didn't. They're really scared. And I don't have a picture of it, but my Arachnarok, Boron, charged Grey Group with the Plague Priest who's been casting Wither, and Grey Group failed their terror check and fled. And so they ran away, and then I tried to redirect into the Abomination, and that didn't work. Alright, so magic was pretty crazy again this turn. First thing I do is cast Powered Up Foot of Gork. I try to hit the bunker with it, it scatters off, it hits my back Goblin Chariot, and luckily I don't roll a 5 or 6 for the number of wounds, because remember, Foot of Gork is d6 wounds. So I just do 1 wound, but I'm pretty pissed about that. So I say, okay Gork, let's get it together. Step on the bunker. So Gork obliges me. He gets a hit, or he scatters just a little bit, I forget. And he steps on the rats. He kills like 6 rats, and it panics. It causes a panic test. And the general, of course, then fails his leadership 7. He runs from the caster of Foot of Gork, which means he runs straight towards my deployment zone, over the Storm Vermin, past the chariots, and right into some fanatics which are released by one of the Night Goblin archer units. Since this is distributed as shooting and there's no packmasters, the general takes the brunt of them and gets killed by some fanatics. The Plague Priest takes a wound. I kill some more rats, and I'm thinking, great, I roll again for the Warpath, and I get to stomp again. So I try to stomp on Red Group, I think, and it scatters. I kill a couple rats. But importantly, then I roll, because I have to keep rolling, and I roll the 1, so my opponent gets to place it, and he places it over all 3 of my chariots, and then gets a hit, which means that he can really F my chariots up. Luckily, he doesn't. He causes 2 wounds. He causes 3 wounds, I think, to a boar chariot, 2 wounds to another, and 1 wound or 2 wounds to the other Goblin chariot. So all my chariots are still intact, but if you'll recall, the Storm Vermin have Blessed with Filth on, which means that they're probably going to kill all 4 of those wounded chariots, which means that while I'm going to kill a butt ton, I'm not actually going to break them. I won't have anything left to win combat with, which is all in all going to be pretty annoying. So nothing much of note happens in the shooting phase. The most exciting thing that happens is my archers over on my left flank manage to plink off a couple wounds from the Abomination. Now, in this picture, you can see what this combat looks like after the combat phase. My chariots came in. They did 18 impact hits between the 4 of them, which, what's that work out to? Like 4.5. So that's about average rolling. But we killed 16, which is above average rolling. I still failed to wound on 1s. So I only failed to wound 2, which really puts these guys in a pickle. As you can tell from this picture, though, they're still steadfast. They still have, enough to be ranked up. They kill the front 3 chariots, and they drop this back chariot to a single wound, which means that I do, in fact, have somebody to to force them to take the break test. And it's on a stubborn 8, I want to say, steadfast 8, but they flee, and they flee through some of my other characters. They flee over the general's unit. They can't stop there, and so that causes them to flee over some fanatics, which knocks them down. They flee over my goblins way in the top of the picture there, which knocks them more out from dangerous terrain, which means that they're under 25% and they need snakes to rally, which means pretty much I'm done with that unit for good. But you'll notice that I didn't catch it with the chariot, so there's that. The slaves next to them do in fact pass their panic test. And these next couple pictures are just to show you what this side of the board looks like after combat. As you can tell, there's not a warp lightning cannon. The 5 wolf riders came in and they all got in. They attacked with their spears, and there was 1 crew member left, and I remember that the wolves got to attack, and the wolves managed to kill that last little guy there. So this is just what it looks like going into his turn 4. Okay, so on his turn 4, red group charges the building again, and things are looking pretty grim in the building. One thing to note, we didn't know how to play this. The character, the warlord, on the war litter, we thought it was still counted as infantry, which meant that it plus 9 other people got to attack, which was really pretty brutal on those orcs. The only thing saving me was some bad rolls really on his part and some good rolls on the leadership test. But if anybody knows anything, let me know how that actually works. We just thought it was 9 plus him, which was a scary prospect. But as you can see, they charge. And also, as you can see, these slaves over here, the 25 slaves, charge my ninja wolves that just killed a warp lightning cannon. But you know what? Battle of the 50-point units, and I've already killed a warp lightning cannon. I'm okay if they die. And also in the movement phase, the slaves, excuse me, not the slaves, the gray group, the general's bunker, and the storm vermin all fail to rally, so they keep running. And we knew the storm vermin was going to fail to rally, but the general's bunker is still able to rally, but that's not. No, you know what? They might be on snakes at this point. So anyway, but gray group is certainly not, and just has failed, even with their musician and the plague priest in there. So that's pretty annoying. The HPA kind of runs over to take on the black orcs. The engineer runs out from the big block of slaves to get out of the way. And really just in combat, the orcs are steadfast in that building again, which is just a kick in the nuts to my opponent. And the slaves wreck the wolves and reform facing the other way. So in my turn 4, the black orcs, as you can see here, they've reformed a little bit. They've taken some damage, and they're worried about the A-bomb and not being steadfast. So they charge the front of those slaves, and my wolf riders charge the other side of the slaves. Those are the wolf riders that managed to take out the block of 25 slaves, not the ones that just died after killing the warp lightning cannon, excuse me. And we really want to go ahead and win this fight now, because we don't want the A-bomb in our flank. That's going to suck. Also, on this turn, the Arachnarok fails to charge. I think he tries to get into the Abomination or the slaves. I forget which one. But anyway, he fails to get in. The fanatics kind of whirl around and either kill themselves or run off the board. In Magic, my Foot of Gork hits the A-bomb right on, takes 3 wounds off, which leaves him on 1 wound. My first Lava misfires and explodes. My second one hits the A-bomb right on, but I fail to wound him with the Strength 9 right under the template. And in combat, those slaves explode, and everybody turns to face the Abomination that's left. The explosion kills the Warlock Engineer that jumped out, which womp womp, and also kills the rest of the Wolf Riders. So this is what the turn looks like at the end. This is what the board looks like, excuse me, at the end of my turn. Here at the start of Skaven, turn 5, the slaves at the bottom of this picture charge my rallied, depleted Night Goblins there. Red group finally gives up on the building, which probably should have done after the first failed assault and the center started to go to crap. But here they are, and they wheel to turn to face the Night Goblins, which aren't going to be there after the slaves get through with them, but at least we'll give them a clear shot into the Dark Monolith, which is what we need to do to win the game on turn 6. Now, unfortunately for my opponent, Grey Group, which you saw in one of the last photos, fails to rally, runs off the board, and so there goes his other wizard, and so now all he's got left are the slaves, these clan rats, and the abomination that's on 1 wound. Okay, and this is the last picture of the game. This is the combat that happens. Predictably, the Night Goblins get run down, and Red Group goes through. But on my turn 5, the Arachnarok, with his Swift Stride, makes a 19-inch charge into the butt of the abomination, and I cast Foot of Gork, and I kill 9 or 10 of Red Group, which brings him down to about 10 or maybe 15, but still not even as numerous as my Black Orcs. And my Black Orcs turn to face Red Group, and my wizard pops out to hang out by the Dark Monolith. And really, in the combat phase, the only thing left is the Abomination to the Arachnarok, and they fight on the same initiative, and the Abomination does 3 or 4 wounds, I think, to the Arachnarok, but the Arachnarok, you know, does that last wound. It's not a poison surge, but it's enough to kill it. So, I mean, that's the game. Skaven waved the white flag to win the game. They have to control the Dark Monolith, and they really just don't have anything left, and I have large chunks of my army left. I mean, my entire left flank, I don't think anything has died yet. So, there's that. So, things that contributed to my victory here is I really feel like I deployed better, and I felt like the gunline orc list was not bad. I don't really need all 4 units of Night Goblins, but, you know, I used them well. I had some good luck in the shooting phases, and my opponent's poor placement of characters in the bunker without checking that the bunker was, in fact, infantry, really was the turning point, being able to snipe the BSB, and then a bunch of people started failing some rolls, which they might not have with the reroll. So once I was able to get that BSB out of the way, and he started failing leadership tests, it was pretty much all over except for the crying. And, you know, as far as big performers in this game, really it's the Orc Shaman. I mean, he killed a mess of stuff, and then almost my chariots, which brings me to my second MVPs, which were the chariots that rolled about average to hit the Storm Vermin, but then just exploded them, 16 wounds. I mean, 15 or 20 Storm Vermin left. That was a great way to spend those. So 270 points. I mean, my chariots apparently are the bane of Storm Vermin. I usually hit the Storm Vermin with 1 or 2, and I usually roll really well for impact hits like that. I guess I just have been fighting against Skaven too long. But anyway, my Orc Shaman Orcsies has control of the Dark Monolith, so watch out, because he is going to be summoning even more power now that he has control of, I don't know, the Chaos Energies